Hi everybody, it's Kathy here, and we are playing along with the Paper Fun Day Challenge for the month of June. And in June we could either use Pink and Main stamps, Dare to be artsy, or moving on to embossing by either dry or wet, and I've chosen to go with dry. I'm also using these old and new stamps to create my embellishments this time, and I am going to stamp them onto this mixed media background that I'm creating to give the effect of a distressed floral for my clusters. And I just like that stamp, and I thought that would be a good way to incorporate the colours that I'm utilising in my layout this month. So I have mixed up a whole range of ink colours here. I've got some Distress Spritz in Vintage Photo. I've got it in Weathered Wood. I've also got a Kaiser spray in the blue, and I'm also adding in some black just to add that extra little bit of detail with the splatters. Over the top of both of them, I'm going to add in some Squeezed Lemon Distress as well. And when I put that to the side, I'm going to let it dry before I do my stamping. Now, Shannon Keith does a lot of this type of thing, and I just thought I'd give it a go for my clusters on this page today. And I actually like the effect that comes out from creating your own background to stamp on. So let's get started with the main idea of the layout. So I've got some Vicki Boutin paper which I've pulled out today, and this is left over from a recent project which works nicely because I'm going to cut it down and utilise it to create tags for this layout. Now they are 2.5 inches wide, and they do get trimmed down to different sizes based on the layout, and I can't actually tell you what size they trim down because I just cut them to match the layout. Then I have put in the hole punch at the top so that the jute string that I'm going to use later can be tied into these tags to add the full tag effect. Now, using this paper here, I'm going to use both sides for the layout. I've got this piece that is just on 6.5 inches by 12, and then I cut down 4 by 12. And I'm going to trim it down into 2 pieces. One is going to be, I think it was 7 and then 4, so it goes across the page. And then this one here is the 11 by 6.5. And I'm using that so it fits on the layout and it has the gap between. And I really like the effect of this paper. And then I'm going to cut that base in half again, and using the branding strip which had a black and white dot stripe, I'm going to put in a join down the middle. So I'm just mapping out how it's going to sit before I start putting it together, and I decide that I would use my distressing tool to rough up the edges because I wanted a bit of texture. It was looking a bit flat against that background. Now, as I said, that is another Vicki Boutin background, and I'm actually using it just as the base. I'm not even using cardstock to frame it this time. I'm just having it go down by itself. Now I'm using these old new stamps, as I said, but that's okay because I wanted these flowers, and I'm going to press in multiples on this background that I created using all of those oxide and distress oxides, and I do love the overall effect of this. It's giving a subtle shade throughout the flowers, and I will fussy cut those out off screen to build my clusters. And I do like how this has turned out. It is quite effective, and you can see that those flowers are just divine. They're just so simple. And I have so many flower stamps that I do not use enough of, and I've been watching a lot of videos lately where Shannon Keith has been doing lots of her own backgrounds for her flowers and then cutting them out, and I'm thinking, yes, I'll give it a go. So I'm just making sure I've got enough for my 3 clusters because I like to have them around the layout in strategic places. And once I've done that, I can then move on to the foliage, which is also a part of this stamp set. and I'm putting that more onto the greeny type paper that I have there. So you can see here where the squeezed lemon is more prominent, and that's giving a greeny effect to the layout with that subtle blue throughout. So I like how this is going to come together, and I do love that I've utilised my stamps a bit. I'm quite impressed that I actually pulled them out and used them for this layout, which is very, very unusual for me, always tending to go to the dies before the stamps. So I have enough foliage there now, and off screen I will go and fussy cut all of those so that we can use them on the layout. While that was happening, I also ran the tags through that embossing folder, and that's how I'm meeting the criteria for this month. I'm using the embossing on my tags, and that's adding that texture or the 3D effect to the tag that I wanted off the background. And I do love this embossing folder. I can't remember what brand it is. I've had it for so long, but it is like it's a rosette sort of floral, and it just looks beautifully with this orange. Now I've chosen this orange as my highlight colour here because if you look at my photo, you will see that in my top that I'm wearing in it, there are flecks of orange, and that's bringing that out to tie it into the layout. Now I've always been asked about colours and how I get them to work in the patterns, and I always use my photos to guide my colour choices. So you can see the green matches that weeping willow in the background. My daughter's blue shirt is blue highlights that I'm putting through these flowers and also in the background of the layout. And then I have the darker blackish blue throughout, and that's tying in those splotches of darker colour through on this layout, which I'll also later on add some more ink to. And I'm just layering up where I think these flowers are going to sit. The foliage actually is a little bit tricky to work with, but I finally worked out how to use it. Took a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of playing, but I was just layering up where I thought these might sit on the layout and how I'm going to use them to best showcase these flowers. So I like how this is coming together. It is It is a photo of my daughter and I. We were in the city, and this is around the Chinese gardens, and it's just peaceful where that photo was taken. And there is a little, like a little creek river thing, and it's full of koi, and it just is very, very peaceful and charming. Now I have these butterflies which I'm adding to my clusters that I have off screen set into place. I also used my my paper punch, to cut out more leaves from that lemon silver paper that I was using for my foliage, and that's allowed the clusters to be a little bit more bulked up as well. Now using these thickers, I'm going to put in the title Just Us, because they are the colours that match beautifully to this paper, and it's subtle enough that it doesn't overpower the photo. So you can see how easy it is to build a layout using all of the elements that you need to in a criteria, but the embossing just lifts that little speck of orange up off that page and adds that dimension that, I have so many embossing folders, I forget to use them. Do you have them too? Do you use them often? Do you use them on your layouts, or do you just forget that they're a tool we have that sits in a drawer and you forget, and occasionally I'll pull them out? I'm going to make a concerted effort to use them a bit more, I think, for June. I think that's going to become one of my little goals, and I'm going to make sure that I use them a little bit more on my layouts. So I'm just finishing off with a messy border. I like how this comes together, and I add those little hashtags there just to add in a little bit of extra, and I make sure that there's a set of 5. I am also going to utilise Nuvo drops or pops of colour. I'm drawing in here the trail of the butterfly just for a little bit of interest, a little bit of frivolity on the page. And I'm going to set up my visual triangle with this goldy yellow pops of colour. and they're going to sit into the clusters there, and you can see that I have now drawn your eye around the page quite easily without too much effort, and it actually looks very balanced, and the photo just pops now because your eye is not settled on one spot. With the weathered wood, I think it's called, yes, I think that's what this one is, I'm putting in some more splatters in the blue, and that's just adding that little bit of an artistic flair to the background. And that's how my layout has basically come together today. Like I said, embossing was my twist on this for the challenge, but I also am challenging myself to use my supplies a lot more. And in the June counterfeit kit, their challenge is to use up all your dries or your wets products, and so I'm using up my spritzers and my sprays that have been sitting around for a long time. And I have added those pops of colour, which I've also had sitting around for a long time. And that is my layout. There is that embossing. Look how beautiful that comes up on those tags and in that colour. And it's just perfect for the overall layout. I'm going over that white highlight in the flowers again, just so that they stand out a little bit more. And that's it, everyone. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I've done enough to earn a thumbs up from you. Go and check out everybody on the blog for all the creators this month. There will be lots of cards, and I'm hoping somebody joins me and does a layout or two. Please enter and join. There's prizes. There's a chance to be a guest designer. So happy scrapping till next time. Here's my next video for you, and I'll see you there real soon.